Top of the morning to you peeps. I hope you guys are all good. This is a quick morning walk with a coffee, discussing some deep shit. Perfect combination if you ask me. Right, found a seat. I don't know what that sound is, bro. I think it's some sort of like excavator or thing. It can't be a dog. If it's a dog, it's probably really injured. But it's really loud. I don't think it's a dog anyway. Anyway, let's focus. Now, today's talk is a very simple one. When I say simple, it's complex as fuck, but simple at the same time. The paradox. And what we're here to discuss is the fact that you believe, or the reason why you believe, and why you have believed that you are human, and why this belief has persisted for so long. Yeah? Now, there's a dog here. Now, why did we believe we're human, or why do we believe we are human, right? Why? That's the question. Now, the first reason why we believe that is because of the power of, or the really, the really convincing power of immersion, yeah? So we are currently immersed in a dream, yeah? And within this dream, we look left, we look right, we look everywhere, 360 degrees, up, down, left, right. We get feedback which tells us that we are human, yeah? So that convinces this pure energetic being in a suit that it is human because of the power of immersion, yeah? So it's the same, like once you're in a dream, which life mimics one for one, the sensations, the emotions, and the environment feel very, very real, right? And your five senses, which are the interface, or you can look at it as the five injuries of the Christ, it's the same. The five wounds of the Christ is the same, yeah? Because you and Christ consciousness are the same thing. Anyway, whatever. Now, it's like the interface is tuned to decode the reality, right? So it's like it gets feedback responses and it tells you, yeah, you're feeling this, you're seeing this, you're smelling this, so therefore it must be real. Forgetting that the interface is simply that, an interface. It's the body, it's a suit, it's not the real essence, yeah? So when all you've known is a dream, how could you not think it's real, yeah? Because we believe we're human because the dream or the game is ultra convincing, yeah? Think of it as this VR place that you're in the same way that when people wear these VR headsets and they go on a roller coaster, they get the feedback, and they respond accordingly, yeah? It's not because they're actually on a roller coaster, it's because the interface is telling them that they're getting that feedback, and they've convinced themselves that that's actually what's happening, yeah? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is the narrative trap, yeah? And the narrative trap is basically the narratives you've been fed or told since you arrived here. And that is, you're told you're born here, this is your name, this is your family, this is your history, this is your gender, this is your role, this is your destiny, this is your ethnicity, this is your culture, this is your this is your that. Like, you're constantly told that. You don't know that for yourself. That information is fed to you, yeah? It's a narrative. Now, when you inherit a story, you always need to be acutely aware that it's actually an inheritance. It's not actually yours. Yeah, it's something you inherited. Yeah. And the issue or the problem that many people run into is that they then start to mistake this inherited narrative for identity. They start to believe it is true because you're looking at your caregivers or the people around you as, authority or credible sources of information or whatever it is, right? We'll get to that in a minute. But again, that's also blind belief, yeah? Blind belief is, we've spoken about this, blind belief is ego, yeah? Okay. Now, when you inherit the narrative or the story and you mistake it for your identity, it becomes a loop. What's a loop? A loop is an illusion, yeah? And beliefs will then reinforce the experience, okay? And the experience also reinforces the belief. It's a loop. You're stuck in an illusion. It feeds itself because you feed it, and it feeds itself and you feed it, and it's blah 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 blah. I mean, it just goes on forever and ever and ever until you break it, right? Now, you need to recognize that the ego itself is the script reader. Yeah, the ego is just reading the script. Yeah, it's not the author. Yeah. Yeah, you're living by a script which was given to you, which you have now believed as you. I hope that's clear, because that's really clear. Yeah. So essentially, you believe you're human because the story is repeated enough to become your truth, even though it's not true. It's simply a script. You believe it because, firstly, because of the immersion. Second is the narrative trap. Now, the third reason why you believe it is because of the emotional anchor. Because, once again, no, it's okay. Because it's the emotional anchor. That's the third thing. Because the illusion isn't just sensory, yeah? It's emotional, yeah? It's emotional, which means that, you know, they hook you, yeah? It's like you experience things, you know, these things that we've labeled as grief or pain or joy, pleasure, love, all these sorts of things, yeah, we've labeled them. But it's like, because some of these things are actually, you know, share connections with our own selves, they feel a certain way, yeah? So because you feel something, you assume it must be you. Yeah, it must be you. But it's the same as like playing a video game with a controller, and something happens in the game, and if you get like the controller vibrates, or something happens, a shock or whatever it is. It's still not happening to the true player. It's happening to the avatar. Yeah, that feedback loop of emotionality is not really you. It's just happening to you. It's part of the whole. It's part of the game itself. Yeah, in a way, it's tied to the immersion thing. Yeah, you know. But you have to realize that emotions are just like coded reactions to stimuli. Yeah, or software. It's not the observer. I've explained this before, you know. So again, you believe you're human because your emotions convince you that the dream is personal. Yeah. Now we spoke about the mind body complex, which is the console interface thing that we're in, yeah. And you have to realize that the system design, or the systemic design of what we're in, also works to convince you that you're human, yeah? So think about it, the matrix, or the construct in all its forms, yeah? Society, religion, culture, race, ethnicity, nationality, bollocks, all this other stuff, rewards you for playing your role correctly, yeah? You step outside your role, you're punished, you're judged, you're ostracized, you're labeled insane, you're labeled a heretic, you're labeled a non-believer, you're fucking shunned. Yeah, all these things happen to you because you're not playing your role. Yeah, you've gone off piste, you've gone off script. Yeah, so many people have to conform to survive. So essentially, it's like you agree to lie. You agree to the lie of the illusion for your own safety, because occupying this animal suit, you realize that animal dynamics play a part here. So when you're ostracized, it can have an effect on resource security and blah blah blah, all the rest of it. So there's a conformity there. So you're conforming to the story or the script of being human. Yeah? Okay. So from that perspective, you can see that we are, or most people believe they're human because the system is designed to keep you identified with the avatar. You step out of it, it will fucking punish you for it. Yeah, you conform, it will reward you nicely. Yeah, this is why you see in the corporate world brown noses and people that just suck dick and fucking kiss ass are fucking promoted, and the actual people that ask questions are always shunned. And people that question authority, people that actually question the soundness of certain perspectives are always kind of like labeled as troublemakers or whatever it is. It's all by design. It's all by design. It really, really is. It's like a relic of what I'm talking about. Now, one of the key components as well that convinces you or convinces people that they're human is the amnesia. Some people call it the memory wipe of the infinite, because we choose to forget. I don't think that there's a memory wipe, because we are all that is. So if we're here with amnesia, then that means that we have chosen amnesia. It's not, nobody can do anything to pure awareness. It's that in itself is a nonsense. Nobody can. It's impossible. So we choose to forget, and that's all part of the game. Because essentially only by forgetting what you are can you journey to remembering it again. And that remembering is awakening. That's what we're doing here every day. Okay? The best example I can use is, let's assume with humans being, I posit that we are quite advanced, Potentially there are other forms of consciousness more advanced than us. It's logical and it stands to reason. But for simplicity's sake, the point I'm trying to make is this. We need to forget, or we need to be able to forget, that we are infinite potential, right? In order for us to be able to maximize the role and play it well to the best of our ability. What do I mean by that? Let's assume it this way. Let's say you are a human being, and you have this really, really cool video game that allows you to play as a lion, or as a dog or a whale or whatever it is, Now, if I go into that game, playing as human, it's going to not work, because the things I do as a human, the lion can do, it just can't do. Physiologically, it can't, it's just not going to work. So I need to completely detach from my inherent abilities, my natural innate abilities, right? And take on the scripted reality of the character I'm playing. Because otherwise I will not be able to do, I won't be able to communicate, I won't be able to, because the things that I would do, my tolerances, etc., the character can't do it. And if I try to actually, if I don't detach and I actually go into that fully with my my original kind of like default settings, it's not going to work. There will be a crash. Something's going to collapse at some point, right? So you need to see it from that perspective. I know it's a simplistic point, but it actually drives it home. So in order for you to play human and play human well, you need to forget that you are God. And in the same way, God has to forget that it's God in order for it to play dog. It has to forget that it's God in order to play sun. It has to forget that it's God in order to play fucking whale and eagle and fish and crow and snake and all the rest of it. Otherwise, it will not be able to do it. Because all those characters are masks, and they all come with a script. So it's almost like you go to the theater and you're going to go and play these roles, but rather than actually completely forget that you are John Smith from Hammersmith, you still maintain that you're John Smith from Hammersmith. It's not going to work. You won't be able to play the character. Let's say the character is some Colombian chap, Marco from fucking somewhere in fucking wherever, in Colombia. You can't do that. It's not going to work. There'll be an energetic mismatch or clash. But in order for the actor John Smith to effectively play his role as Marco, he needs to completely detach from John Smith and go into Marco blank. So he has to forget that he is Marco, he is John, and play Marco. But the issue is when you over personalize and over identify with Marco, now you've forgotten that you're John Smith and you think you're Marco. You're walking around doing Marco stuff, but you're not Marco. I hope that drives it home. I hope. Does that mean that animals also are subject to the above? Like I just said, you know, the amnesia, the systemic design, the emotional anchors, the narrative trap, and the power of immersion. But I will say yes, but with subtle nuances. And what I mean by that is this. Because all forms, because that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is infinite potential manifested into form, yeah? So all forms in the dream, yeah? Be it animals, humans, trees, even stars, bro, celestial bodies, etc., are all expressions of consciousness. Everything is, yeah? But they all have a unique frequency because we're all vibrational, yeah? Okay, we've established that, we know that by now, yeah? Now, having a unique frequency and interface also means that you have a unique limitation, yeah? There are boundaries within, like we have boundaries. That's why I can't understand what a lion is saying to another lion, but they are communicating, yeah? And that's why a lion can't understand me when I speak to, or whatever, yeah? But there are certain ways that certain ways we communicate all across the board, but we'll get to that. So, first things first, you need to realize that all forms of consciousness, all expressions of consciousness are also avatars, yeah? The same way you are a suit, a human suit, the stars or the celestials are also suits for consciousness, yeah? But with a unique config, frequency and limitation, yeah? So animals being avatars, like humans, they are vehicles for consciousness, yeah? But their programming is simpler because there are levels of awareness, yeah? There are humans that behave like animals and there are humans that are high-level Jedis, yeah? So that confirms the ultimate truth that there are levels of awareness and perception. Fact. Now, just like humans and animals, you know, being vehicles for consciousness, you know, programming for animals is slightly different, yeah? It's simpler, yeah? It's based on instinct, you know? There's less ego, you know, and they don't carry the same kind of like narrative traps or mental chatter that humans do, yeah? So their presence feels almost purer, yeah, almost more aligned with what they are, yeah, i.e. consciousness in a suit, yeah? They accept reality, yeah? They are conscious, but they're just not distracted by identity like we are, yeah? That's why they don't bother with I'm a boy born in a girl's body, or I'm a girl born in a man's, stupid shit like that. It's stupid to them, actually. Now, I've already touched on this, but there's also another component here because levels of awareness differ, yeah? Because humans have the unique, ability or capacity to observe the observer, yeah? We can look at ourselves in the mirror, yeah? We're able to question our thoughts. We're able to explore the nature of I am, yeah? That's why we are, when I say humans, I mean consciousness in this advanced suit. That's why we are usually assigned the player with choice, yeah? That's why we have choice. You know, we have that role in the game. Animals are aware also. Don't ever think that they're not aware. Even the fucking earthworm is aware, yeah, but not self-reflective in the same narrative way. Well, as far as we can tell, anyway. Yeah, the jury is out. Now, there's another way we can also look at it, which is consciousness wears many masks on the stage. Yeah, we know this. We've discussed this. You know, the dog, the eagle, the whale, each is a different lens, if you like, through which source experiences existence. And it's almost like the levels of awareness or perception, because remember the choices have already been made, may be deliberate. You know, maybe consciousness wants to experience what it's like to just experience what it's like to be in a different frequency with a different set of limitations, right? But yeah, but also when it comes to animals and other expressions of consciousness, right, we gotta realize that not everything is what it seems. And sometimes as humans we occupy this position in the game, and we usually have this arrogance about us that, yeah, we tend to think that we know it all, and we are the main characters. We have main character syndrome, yeah. we do. But historically, even though the universe was created last Thursday, we know that some animals like cats, crows, snakes, what's the other one? Storks, you know, all sorts of different animals, yeah, have been seen as guardians, watchers, messengers, yeah, doves, yeah. So maybe they may not just be like animals and just skin suits, but they might actually be like energetic symbols, yeah, aspects of consciousness that carry specific memories or specific levels of awareness. You know, some may even be more conscious than we are, you know, but there's no way to tell because we are all locked in our own individual experiences, yeah. But yeah, overall, we need to realize that no matter what happens, nature is never going to suffer, because it doesn't suffer, yeah. Because most animals don't identify with their pain or story. They don't suffer like humans do, yeah. They experience, but they don't personalize. That makes them freer spiritually, really, even if they're not enlightened in our sense of what enlightenment is, yeah. So in summary, it can be said that, yeah, everything here is an expression. Some are more conscious than others, you know, and some are reminders, maybe some are archetypes, because it's the very same thing trying to remember itself back home, yeah, Hansel and Gretel style. Everything here is the one, just with a different mask, level, awareness, perception, or mission. So yeah, but you should stop believing that you are a human.